Hello. So we started with crowd participation, so I'm going to carry on, although I hate it. So please don't put your hands up. Have you ever been on a swing? Yeah. Everyone, brilliant. That's great. And have you ever fallen off a swing? Don't put your hands up. So great. You can all feel my pain on that day when I fell off my swing. Let me tell you what happened. So it all started with my cat, and she bit me. Now, this wasn't like a casual bite. She really went for it, and she made a hole all the way through my finger. If it hadn't been for all the blood, you could have seen daylight through it. So it was very painful, and I fainted. And the next thing that I knew, I was in the car, and my dad, this was not like recently, this was like when I was 7. Isn't weird? My dad turned around and said, "Oh, we're just going to your favorite animal park." And I was like, "What? I guess this makes sense." I looked down, my mum had bandaged up my finger, and I was like, okay, well, all right. I love that animal park because they've got loads of wild cats. I love cats. So we went there, and after an hour of walking around on a swelteringly hot day, you don't know what this is like you don't have hot weather in because I'm from Germany, you see. So a swelteringly hot day, we walked around for an hour, and there was 0 cats out. They were all hiding in their enclosures. There was just no cat no-show. So now I didn't only have a throbbing finger, I was also really disappointed because there was no cats. But don't worry, my dad had a plan, so he put me on the closest go-kart. Go race your brother. And it's like, wow, okay, I guess this makes sense. And when I was 7, I wasn't all that good at driving. So I lost control of my go-kart pretty quickly, drove into the sand hill, which kind of threw me up in the air, and I crashed down on the gravel, and my right leg was awful. It was like covered in gravel and blood, and it was painful, worse than the finger. But don't worry, my dad came to the rescue, and he swooped me up, put me on the closest swing, gave me a big push. But I wasn't ready, and I fell off and hit my head. So that was the day when I fell off my swing. And that was also the day when I realized that my dad had no idea how to treat his children in moments of crises. He had this one mode, it was crazy dad mode. Let's just get on to the next exciting thing. And he just used that in every situation. And that's how most brands treat their customers, with no regard to the current situation. And that's why I'm here today, to talk to you about search intent, because that will allow us to understand our customers and treat them in the way that we need to treat them, not just crazy dad. So let's have a think about how this all works. How can we understand users better? And it usually starts with like people creating content, right? And it's really easy to completely ignore your customers without even realizing it. So we've all done it. We've created this amazing piece of content, and we think it's really going to go down well with our audience. They're going to love it, and you think it's like, oh, this is a really great piece of content. But there's a problem with that, and that's you. Because it's not about you, it's about your customers. And if we don't understand them, then the content we created is wasted. All of that time that we spent is going to be wasted. So let's have a think about how we identify search intent. But before we do that, let's talk about what it actually is. And for me, I'd like to split it in two. It's meaning. What are the searchers actually looking for? What do they want to achieve? What does their query, what does the keywords that they put into Google actually mean? And then the second one is intent stages. So that's more like, what kind of stage is the user in their journey when you think about, funnels and things like that? Are they just looking around? They don't necessarily know what they're looking for, or that they're even looking for anything. They're in the informational stage. Or are they comparing? Are they comparing products? They're in the commercial stage. Are they looking to buy something right now? They're transactional stage. Or are they looking for something local? They're in a local stage, right? So it makes sense. Now, there's so many ways of identifying search intent, I've actually decided to just concentrate on 2 today. And both of those are looking at the informational stage, but that doesn't mean I want you to ignore the others. It's just that you get started with these 2 that I'm telling you about, and then once you've used them a few times and you're like, oh, this is actually really helpful, and you're getting a lot of good feedback, get in touch with me and I will help you out with the others, more ways of identifying intent, which will then also cover the different intent stages. So keep that in mind. And we're going to start with how to identify intent using semantics in search. So that's how the queries are constructed. And more specifically, we're going to look at the query itself. What does the keyword that people put into the search boxes actually mean? What does it mean? Now, most of the time, and this is what happens with my SEO clients, I ask them, okay, so what do you think you want to be found for in Google? What do you think you should be found for? And they give me like a list of 2, 3, 5 keywords maybe, and then they ask Karen from accounting and Tim from HR, and they're like, oh, we should rank for this, and oh yes, this and this and that. And it turns into like a situation you'd see like an all-you-can-eat buffet where we're just loading our plates with keywords, and just there's no reason or kind of strategic idea behind it. And it's all because they want exposure, right? We need to rank because we need that exposure. But it has literally never happened that my customers, my clients, have thought about their customers before they made this list and thought about what the searchers actually wanted and what they were looking for. It was always putting their mindset onto the audience rather than the other way around. And this is my favorite story. What a client asked me a few years ago, well, some years ago actually now, they asked me to rank for the term London Olympics. Now, this was just a few weeks before the event, so there was just like no way. But that wasn't the problem. It's much worse than that. The problem was that they were selling Union Jack rugs. But at no time did they ever consider that the people searching for London Olympics didn't want to buy their stupid rugs. It's just like they had no idea. But it happens so much, and it only just happened last week. Somebody asked me to rank for the word emergency, and I'm like, it's terrible, and it's all fueled by this obsession to rank, and we just need to let go of that, because there's no point in ranking for something that's completely irrelevant for the user, for the searcher. First of all, it's not going to happen, and second of all, even if you did, they would just go back to the search results because they don't want that. They don't want to buy rugs. So let's go into actually how we identify intent. And again, it starts with the query. It starts with those initial keyword lists. And most of the time, they're short queries, right? They're fragments. They might be just a singular one, or they might be like 2-word phrases that you get. So often they're still quite ambiguous. And that leaves us a lot of room for interpretation. But it's not just us who struggle with that. Google does the same thing. They've been having their computer scientists look into how to understand natural language for decades. But we, as people, we already understand natural language. You can understand what I'm saying. We can understand what words mean and why they're in a certain order. So we've got the advantage here, and we need to use that. So let's have a look at what that means. We know that can cat stand and standing cat are completely different queries, right? They mean different things. People want different things from them. So the top one, can cat stand, that's more about the abilities of cats, whereas the second one is looking for this little peach. You know him? You've seen him? Everybody should. I mean, like, if you haven't, let's all watch him later together. But we also know it because we can understand that there's a difference between the queries. They're completely different, right? So let's have a look at how we can dissect our search queries to understand the subtleties behind them. And we're going to start with nouns. Here's some nouns. I've made them red. So identify your nouns in your query. Think about what they mean. Think about how they relate to each other if there's several ones in them. And also think about whether they're singular or plural, because that has a huge impact, actually really does. So have a think about that. Next, let's have a look at verbs. Now, again, red, it's a verb. Think about what nouns these verbs relate to, what kind of tense they are in, and then also whether they have one meaning, like a singular meaning, or whether they can mean different things. So in this example, it's either about the actual, action of lying down versus the fidelity of your cat. Big difference. Let's have a look at prefixes and suffixes, because just a few little characters can completely change the meaning of the query. So for example, dream kittens is completely different to dreaming kittens. Let's take that apart a little bit. So dream kittens, that's not something that we're familiar with. That's not like a known thing, a song or a band. I would know, because I know about kittens. But it's like a fragment. So I would interpret it like dream, kittens. And it's not the kitten's dream, it's my dream. I dream of kittens. I do. But so from a searcher's perspective, the way I would interpret that is, what does it mean to dream of kittens? That might be something that they're looking for. Dream kittens, what does it mean to have a kitten in a dream? That kind of thing. Whereas dreaming kittens, immediately the dreaming belongs to the kittens, now they're doing the dreaming. So what does the searcher want here? They want to have pictures of dreaming kittens. Obviously. So you can see there's a difference there. Let's have a look at the search syntax. So that's how the query is structured. What words follow, what order are the words in? And again, that has a huge impact. If we go back to kittens, our dream kittens example, if we swap that around to kittens dream, that changes the meaning of the query. It's not I dream, it's the kittens that are dreaming now. Kittens dream, it's like a statement. Kittens dream, yes, of course they dream. But having a look at another example, cats love versus love cats. Cats love, it's like, okay, Google, complete my sentence. Cats love bringing dead mice into the kitchen as a present to the family. And the love cats, that's like a node entity, right? It's the Cure song. Let's all sing it. Don't sing it. So you can see that we can understand meaning behind even the shortest queries if we really think about it and if we use our ability to understand natural language. But luckily for us, queries are becoming much longer and more conversational, especially with voice search. So we can get much more information about the queries themselves. We can get rid of that ambiguity within them. And also we can build a bigger picture around. And so if we start with our short fragments, we can actually quite easily build the stories around those fragments. And how do we do that? We go to Google. And we put in our fragments. So I used cat bananas, because my cat is bananas, maybe. And what do I get? I get like a featured snippet at the top, which talks about the adverse reaction of cats and bananas. And then, so we already get some meaning from that, right? And then down here, we've got people also asked, which are literally questions other people have also asked that are related to cat bananas. And again, we have two that are talking about the tolerability, is that a word, of cats and bananas. But we also have one that asks why cats are so afraid of cucumbers. So there's that doesn't really make sense because bananas and cucumbers aren't the same thing. So it implies that a lot of people have also searched for cats being afraid of bananas, right? So we can really build the stories around our short fragments by just looking at what Google shows us. And we can use Google more because there's so many more ways of getting implied intent from Google directly, especially for organic search results. So if you think about why does Google rank pages in their search results, it's because they're relevant to the searcher, not because they're relevant because they're stuffed full of keywords that are like the same as the searcher's terms, but because they allow the searcher to actually complete their task that they set out to do. They let them achieve their goal, you know. So the searcher's looking for something in particular, they want to get something out of it. And Google ranks pages highly because they think that they will be able to with those pages. So that means that the results that we see rank up highly match the intent of the user. Well, that's what we think. That's what I think anyway. So let's use Google to understand what they think is the intent behind the searcher. Let's put in our query. This is again a fragment. It's like good dog. And let's have a look at the results and take them apart. So we start with the titles. Good dog walking services. That's pretty straightforward. It's dog walking services. The good dog is the brand. Then we have, there's no such thing as a good dog. I'm not really sure what that means. Looks like an article. Don't know, but not really that sure about it. Good dog, theatre, the Albany. So the Albany is a theatre. The good dog might be a show. Let's look at the descriptions to verify that. Let's ignore the first and the third because that's already really clear. Second one, got a date, so it's an article. Good dog is a well-trained dog. Wiley's built like a pit bull. I'm not sure. Still, I mean, that sounds clear. But what is clear is that each of these results has a different intent. Sometimes you'll get the same intent for all of them. Sometimes you'll get different intents. So note down what you get, but to be able to really understand what it all means, take it a step further and actually go and visit those websites. Think about what the content was created for on there. Like, what does it allow the user to achieve? Was it created with just one keyword in mind? Or is it like, you know, like a FAQs page where they've got loads of answering loads of different questions? So just bear that in mind and always think about what the user, what the searcher can achieve when they look at the content. And really understand those stories that the search engine result pages are telling you, because they do tell you stories. For example, with ours here, we understand now that people that are looking for good dog, this was in London, I'm not sure whether you'd get the same result in Cambridge, but people are looking for good dog in London are most likely to look for the good dog walking services, right? So they click on that, and then there they might be able to just find out information, or they might actually be able to book their local dog walker. So you get that journey, that user journey, straight from search right through to potentially conversion. And in that example, you could even think about what user stage they're in, because it might be transactional. But also understand the competitive landscape behind it, and know that whatever ranks highest in Google's eyes is most relevant. So you can say, okay, well, I've got like 5 intents here, but I can number them. I can literally give them an order of priority. And also, at the same time, while you're doing this, always remember that some search results are a lot more competitive than others. So for some, you might get completely garbage stuff at the top because they're not very competitive. So don't copy that. And I think it's just common sense to look at it and say, okay, well, this is not relevant. And I know it ranks, but this is just not great. And that's perfect, because you can do better, right? But for some competitive searches, obviously, there's been a lot more time and effort put into the results. So think about that when you're looking at it. But the main thing I want you to do is write this stuff down. So make like a cheat sheet. Start with your fragment, with your keyword list, and then do this in a spreadsheet, because like spreadsheets, SEOs love spreadsheets. You put like your starting term at the beginning, you put your related searches, everything else that you found in there, and then you say, okay, well, what does it mean? What's the meaning? One column is for your meaning. And then what's the different types of intents that I found for this particular keyword? Every single keyword needs to have its own intent, and sometimes it might have several ones. And then think about taking Google's hint of prioritizing them. And then while you're there, also make some notes on your competition. What do they do well? What can you do better? and then use that to create new content on your website, or adjust existing content, or just convince your C-suite or your client, if you're like an agency SEO, which terms you should target and which terms are just not relevant to target because the user is not, the user's journey, the user intent is not aligned with yours. Or if you really want to target those terms, make sure that you create content that does fulfill that, that task that the searcher set out to do. And please don't ever be tempted to sell your products to people that don't even know that they've got a problem yet. Because if you do, you'll just give them too much of a push, like my dad, and they'll just fall off the swing. Thanks very much.